Samurai talk without swords.
Without swords.
They're getting too close for comfort, but that's what it means to be a samurai community.
Yes, we're buddies.
So, nice to be back, buddy. So today we'll talk about the second impressions of Switzerland and Japan. So Switzerland, is it a harmonious society? The entire different regions, are they fused?
Yeah, I think it wants to be harmonious because but because there's so many different regions and they're very decentralized, it requires a lot of compromise.
What do you mean compromise? They shake hands and everything goes away?
Well, we talked about last week how the society is more collaborative and there's more of a community orientation, and therefore individual differences have to be somehow subservient to the community, and in that way, people have to compromise their individual interest in the interest of the greater.
What do you mean compromise the individual interest? Giving away the whole thing. But now you're right. I'm wrong. Forget about it. Is this the kind of a compromise without going through the process of a give and take? You do have a lot of conflicting situations.
Of course, it's a small community, and there's a lot of shared resources. So, you do have these conflicts, and all the more reason to have to work them out and come up with some sort of compromise so people can live with each other in a harmonious way.
What about the Zurich, where the German-speaking people? Germans have the system called Mitbestimmung, co-determination. Yeah. The Swiss people talk across the table and shake hands. It doesn't work that way, does it?
Yeah, well, I think the history in Germany was a bit different because they had these very big industries, and to have big industries like steel and automobile, you needed iron ore and you needed coal, and since Switzerland never had these natural resources, they never really had the big industries, and what they had was more craftsman type businesses, so producing watches, producing textiles, with smaller organizations without the need of having these unions. So we didn't have to really go through that sort of problem, if you like.
You told us earlier to the effect that it takes poor resources to make a creative human resources, because there's plenty of opportunity for them to try harder to come out of the situation. Can you prove that true seed of capitalism comes out of Switzerland instead of out of France, Germany? Why Switzerland? Why people are so hardworking, clockwork and craftsmanship and chocolate and Swiss cheese? Why?
Well, I think historically it was a very poor society, and people came from the mountains, and there's a lot of uncertainty in the mountains. You can have weather, you can be snowed in for months, you can have avalanches, you can have poor seasons, so your crops are destroyed. So you had these sort of, as like with Japan, you had this high degree of uncertainty, and to deal with this uncertainty, you had to do two things. One, you had to be much more cautious in terms of trying to anticipate various outcomes, and secondly, you just had to work harder. You had to cut more wood so that in case the winter was longer, you had to have more wood to burn, or you had to make more cheese so that you could survive the winter. So I think a lot of that comes from just the natural circumstances, if you like, the harsh natural circumstances of Switzerland.
The image that they have about the Switzerland people, the Swiss people, that's hardworking, because even the Romans couldn't make it to Alps because the Alps. So not because they're the ferocious soldiers, but because of the natural environment that protects them against the foreign attack.
Yeah, that's right. But they're also very strong. I mean, they were ferocious soldiers. The Swiss mercenaries were the most highly paid mercenaries during medieval Europe. So if you were Napoleon or Metternich, if you had to choose, you would choose actually Swiss soldiers. To this day, they have Swiss soldiers guarding the Vatican, so guarding the Pope. So,
guarding the popes.
Yeah.
So
we had our samurais as well.
Samurai, Vatican samurai, Jesuit, very powerful. You're Catholic.
Yes, I grew up through.
Do you have a Swiss Army knife, by the way?
I do, but not with me.
Yeah, I'm not with that. But we should have the one, that works for different purposes,
Yeah.
That pretty much describes the nature of the Swiss people, right?
Yeah, well, the Swiss Army knife was actually made to distinguish a captain in the Swiss military. So you had to have a certain rank or above because they were very expensive to produce. So only the captains received these
really?
knives. Yeah. So it was a sign of stature, a bit like the samurai outfit. Yeah.
ちょっと難しい話になりましたけどね、侍スイスアーミーナイフと私も持ってるんですけどね。
Yeah. So I mean, what strikes me is that
で、ちょっとふと考えてみたんですが、
Japan's sort of trying to make up its mind about how it would like to proceed with its future, and
将来どう
maybe
対処
rather
して
than
いい
looking
か
at
ということは、
models in the United
まあア
States
メリカ
or
をモデ
models
ルに
in
して考
China,
えたり、中
it
国の
may
やり方を
wish
見
to
る
sort
よ
of
りも
look and
ちょっ
study
と
the
発
Swiss
想を
model
転
as a
換
source
して
of
ですね、ちょっ
inspiration.
と
Given the fact that there's so many
何か新しい
similarities
ひら
in
め
the
きを
cultures,
学ぶというような
both
ことをやった
countries
らどうかなと。
rely
スイス
on
と日本とは
resourcefulness
お
instead of
互い
natural
に
resources. Both
自然
countries
の天然資源
have
とか考え
a
ると
deep sense of
共通点
collaboration
はあるん
and
ですね。
community
協
as
力
opposed
す
to
る
the
必要がな
individual.
きゃいけないという
And
個
both
人に対
countries
する
have
プライ
a
ド、両方と
sort
も
of bottom
国
up
がですね、
mindset in
やはり
terms
こ
of
の
how
考
they
え方は
behave
ト
and how
ップ
they
ダウンというより
regulate
も
their
下から上がっているというね、
relationships with other
そういう
people.
和の心っていうのを
There
持
are a
っている
couple
の
big
ですね。
differences. One is
もちろん違
immigration.
うことはあり
The
ま
Swiss
す。
have a lot more
まあ
immigrants.
スイス
So
は
that's
いろん
something
な
that
移民者を受け入れ
Japan
てま
has
す
to
から、
give some
日本はなかな
consideration
かそれ
to
はできません
in
が、将
terms of
来日
how
本
it
も
wants
考えな
to
きゃい
work
けな
its
いか
way
も
out
し
of
れま
its
せんね。
growth
それで
problem.
こういう
And
い
the
ろん
other
な問
feature is that
題
the
を
Swiss
解決する
society
ために
is very
スイス
much
の
more
モデルというのは
decentralized.
役
And
に立つと
as
思い
we've seen
ま
with the
す。
vote
ちょっ
in
とバラバ
Osaka
ラってい
last
うこ
week,
とは語弊ある
there
かも
are
しれ
some
ませんが、
inclinations
そこ
to
にいろ
revisit
んな情報
the
と
merit
いう
of
の
having a
をバ
more
ラバラにして、
decentralized
そ
society.
の
So I think
地方
this is
冒
what
険
sort
し
of
ている方
inspired
か
me
ら
during
学
this
ぶこ
trip
とが
was to
ある
sort
と。
of offer this
だから
as
そう
a
いう
possible
知恵
source
です
of
ね、それを
reflection.
どのようにやるかっていう
And
お
I
互
also
いに
think
反
that
省し
Switzerland
合う
could
じゃあ
learn
り
some
ません
things
か。
from
スイスから学
Japan.
んだり、日
I
本から
I
学
see
んだり、
these
そうい
taxi
うこの
drivers and
運転手
people on
の
the street
見
and
まして
the
は
degree
道
of
端を見
courtesy
て
and
もです
politeness that
ね、
they
やは
have
り
and
こう見ても
friendliness
礼儀が正しいじゃないですか。
is
日
absolutely
本の人
remarkable,
を
and
見
I
ま
think
し
it's
てね、
something
こ
that
れ
the
は
Swiss people could
私
also
スイ
learn
スの
from
人もそ
Japan.
こから日本から学ぶことがあると思いますね。Okay, let's talk a little bit about a decision that have to be made at the bottom instead of from the top. Why the top-down management system doesn't work in your country?
Yeah, I think historically it has to do with the fact that Switzerland never really had an aristocracy. We didn't have a king. We also didn't have this sort of relationship between landowners and serfs. So there was never a historical identity sort of with this type of authoritative hierarchical structures. Quite the contrary. Jean-Jacques Rousseau was the person who first came up with the idea of a social contract. He came from Geneva, and he defined the system of volonté générale, which was the idea that the people actually themselves can rule themselves without a king. So that was the first time that anybody came up with this notion that the ordinary people could actually rule themselves without having a king looking over their shoulders. And this is something that sort of is very much deeply ingrained in the Swiss people. Abraham Lincoln once described the U.S. government as being government by the people, for the people, and by the people. But the truth is that that's a better description of the Swiss government than it is of the American government, because the Swiss actually, with its system of direct democracy, puts the value of the real sovereign element as the individual.
Piecing together what you have just mentioned, the pieces of information about the way you look at both countries, and it seems to me that your system is based on self-reliance.
Very much so.
Self-reliance.
Very much so.
So on the resilience too.
Resilience
When
as
they don't know
well.
how to stick it out, stick to basic principles of democracy or what?
Well, I think the Swiss have always been very skeptical about centralized power, and they fear that if you
一つは中心的にまとまるという中央集権型に対する疑問というのはスイス人が持ってるんですね。そういう感じにもっと時間があればやりたいと思うんですけど、また来週もお会いしたいと思います。道弘松本 Knowledge Channel Tokyo Japan. You've made my day. See you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.